How did you discover your commanding officer's secret talent that nobody saw coming? Colonel Peterson was the toughest officer I'd ever met. 6'4", built like a tank, voice that could rattle windows 3 buildings away. Guy had been through 3 combat deployments and ran our base like a military textbook. This man made grown soldiers cry during inspections. Never smiled, never joked, treated every conversation like a tactical briefing. We called him the iceberg behind his back because he was cold and massive. I was working late shift in the communications building when I heard something strange coming from his office next door. It was past midnight, figured he'd gone home hours ago, but there was definitely someone in there. Sounded like singing. Really good singing. I pressed my ear against the wall thinking maybe he had the radio on, but the voice was too clear, too perfect. Classical opera stuff that you'd hear at fancy theaters. Next night, same thing. Beautiful singing drifting through the walls around 1 a.m. Started getting curious about what our ice-cold colonel was doing alone in his office after hours. Week 3 of this mystery, I volunteered for extra duty just to have an excuse to be in the building late. Waited until the singing started, then crept down the hallway to investigate. His office door was cracked open slightly, peeked inside and nearly dropped my clipboard. Colonel Peterson was standing behind his desk in full uniform, conducting an invisible orchestra while singing opera in perfect Italian. Not just humming along to music. Full-blown professional-level performance with hand gestures and everything. The man who terrorized our entire battalion was belting out arias like he belonged on stage at Carnegie Hall. I watched, completely stunned, as this intimidating military officer transformed into something completely different. His whole face changed when he sang, peaceful, almost gentle. That's when I accidentally knocked over a mop bucket in the hallway. Loud crash echoed through the entire building. The singing stopped immediately. I scrambled back to my desk, pretending to work on radio maintenance logs. Few minutes later, Colonel Peterson appeared in my doorway. Stone-faced as usual. Working late tonight, Stevens? Yes, sir. Just finishing these equipment checks. He studied me for a long moment, probably wondering if I'd heard anything. Good. Carry on. He disappeared back to his office, but the singing didn't resume that night. Thought that was the end of it until 2 weeks later when base morale was at an all-time low. We'd just gotten word about extended deployments, canceled leave, budget cuts affecting everything from food quality to equipment maintenance. Soldiers were grumbling, attendance at voluntary events was dropping, even the senior NCO seemed defeated. That's when Colonel Peterson made an unexpected announcement over the PA system. All personnel report to the main auditorium at 1900 hours. Mandatory attendance, no exceptions. We figured it was another lecture about discipline and military bearing, maybe threats about the complaining he'd been hearing. Packed into those uncomfortable metal chairs expecting the worst. Peterson walked onto the empty stage wearing his dress uniform. No podium, no microphone, no PowerPoint presentation, just him standing alone under the spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I know morale has been challenging lately. Sometimes words aren't enough to remind us why we serve. Then he started singing. Same beautiful opera voice I'd heard through the office walls, but now filling an entire auditorium. Italian words I couldn't understand, but the emotion was universal. Dead silence from 300 soldiers. Nobody moved. Nobody whispered. Just pure shock watching our terrifying commanding officer deliver the most beautiful performance any of us had ever witnessed. He sang for 20 minutes straight. Multiple pieces, different languages, each one more impressive than the last. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. Guys were wiping their eyes. Turns out Peterson had been a professional opera singer before joining the military. Performed in New York and Chicago before 9/11 changed his priorities. Never mentioned it because he wanted to be judged as a soldier, not an entertainer. That performance became legendary. Morale shot through the roof overnight. Soldiers started bragging to other units about our opera singing colonel. Recruitment numbers went up because people wanted to serve under him. 3 months later, Peterson got promoted to general and transferred to Pentagon. At his farewell ceremony, the entire base sang the national anthem while he conducted. His replacement found a note in the office desk drawer. Music builds better soldiers than fear ever could. The radio stays on channel 94.5 after hours.